Hey there and welcome back to XCOM 2. My name is Pete and today we complete another episode of our Legend Ironman walkthrough of XCOM 2 War of the Chosen. Last time we left off after a relatively smooth Guerilla Ops mission, a mission that became a bit chaotic near the end when 4 codexes showed up, and yes, we have also extensively debated what the correct plural is in the comments of that video. Apart from the mission itself then, we began working on psionics with the construction of our Psi Lab. We also advanced Ranger Starfall to the highest rank of Colonel and reduced the Avatar project by a good chunk. All in all, we made some decent progress and today will be no different, so let's get right to it. With last week's mission behind us, I think it's time we send Ranger Starfall to trait recovery. He's still running around with the negative fear of the Chosen trait, and we do not want that to come back and bite us in the wrong moment. So for the next 10 days then, our one and only Colonel will be out of action, so let's start scanning. Our next rumor then offers us alien alloys and delirium crystals. No doubt that both of those will be useful sooner or later, but we also have an excavation about to be completed soon that will give us the same materials, so I don't think we absolutely need to grab this. Meanwhile, the completion of last episode's rumor has gained us one more resistance contact, and I think we want to use it before the next supply drop comes in, just so we maximize our income for the next month. Now we have the capacity to add 2 more regions to our resistance network, and in the last episode we also unlocked a small bonus, which cuts the intel cost for the next region we make contact with in half. Unfortunately though, that bonus does not really seem to apply here as we take a look at South Africa, a region that I would like to add soon to get the African continent bonus. Instead of 80 intel here, the cost should actually only be 40, but I've had a brief look around and for some reason the 50% cost reduction seems to apply only to New Brazil, so I guess let's make contact with them. I'm afraid that if we don't, the bonus might just get lost. Right, for the cheap price of 40 intel, we have made our first contact in South America, a continent whose bonus is actually very easy to obtain, as it only requires 2 regions and a relay.
New regional contacts located.
At this point, we now also have pathways to 2 other regions, but I think we'll use our last contact slot to complete Africa first. The continent bonus there is just slightly better in my opinion.
The local resistance operatives we just made contact with in this region warned us that one of the Chosen has been terrorizing the area for some time now. Here's the intel they've collected so far.
So, you would come to strike at me. I eagerly await your arrival, Commander.
Alright, look who we have found. It's the 3rd Chosen. I had half expected this to happen as we have now made contact with the Warlock, the Chosen focused mostly on psionics. So it looks like from here on out we will have all 3 of them to contend with, but then again it was only a matter of time anyway. Now at this point, like I said, we could use our last contact slot to complete South America, but I personally do not believe that the volunteer army continent bonus here is overly important, so let's instead use that last contact slot to grab the 3rd African region. No cutscene this time, and the bonus is also not yet unlocked. For that we need to construct another relay. Where we build it does not matter much in terms of future contact attempts, so we can go purely based on how much money we make from it. And let's take a brief look here. We seem to get a little bit more money out of East Africa, so let's build it there to maximize our income. Speaking of which, before we actually get going with the construction, we need to grab ourselves some supplies. We have more construction work coming up after all, and not a whole lot of money left.
Commander, we've utilized all of our available communications capacity. We can't establish any new contacts until we upgrade our systems.
We've located the Elder's Hunter, actively working in this region, Commander. Commander, the aliens continue to make progress on the Avatar project. If we're going to slow them down, we'll need to move fast.
Alright, one more point of Avatar project progress then. In the meantime, we have completed plasma grenades in the proving ground, so our regular frag grenades are now all substantially better. Well, substantially might be subjective, they only deal 1 more point of damage and 1 more point of armor shredding, but for an explosive that is potentially capable of hitting multiple enemies at once, that is nothing to be scoffed at. The now unlocked Advanced Explosives project meanwhile might be a bit misleading. No, this will not be a further improvement to our already improved frag grenades. Instead, this will only improve some of the more experimental grenades, of which we have not actually unlocked any yet. We also do not need to assign another project just yet. You might recall that we postponed skull mining for this, so that's what the proving ground is now still working on. While that happens then, our next building site is cleared, and as I said, we now earn some alloys and crystals that way. Before we can take a look at what to build, however, we need to scan just a few more moments longer, otherwise we just don't have the supplies. Now at this point you can see it, we could build something here, but we don't have enough power. That, however, can easily be fixed by assigning an engineer to one of our power relays, so Dr. Isaac Schmidt here can now immediately grant us 5 more units. And yes, we could have also increased the power by upgrading a power relay, but that would have been expensive, and we currently have the engineer to spare. And with that, we now have enough to build a second resistance comms facility. Yes, we will most likely need a second one if we want to cover the entire world, which we do because there is an achievement for that.
Resistance Communications Facility construction initiated.
We also want to assign Ophelia Morningstar as the engineer to cut the building time in half, and just like that, we will be able to contact even more regions just before the next supply drop comes in. To clear out the last spot of alien machinery here then, we currently lack the engineers, but we have also not yet unlocked the facility I would like to build there, so we are not in a rush. And with that, let's head back to scanning, and at this point we can now actually begin the construction of the radio relay. That way we should actually be able to obtain the continent bonus before the next supply drop.
Setting course for Sector 12, East Africa.
More news then from the Proving Ground. We have finished skull mining, and with that we have unlocked an extra action for the Skulljack. Now we are able to use it against enemies to mine them for intel or facility leads, and especially in the intel's case this is a rather reliable way of obtaining it. Now our next project, that will be the exosuit, our first proper suit of heavy armor. As you can see, it does not cost supplies and only takes 5 days to finish, and there are a good number of classes that benefit immensely from this. We'll talk more about that once it's finished.
Interesting choice. I'll send word as soon as we're finished, Commander.
In the meantime, let's keep working on the relay. Only 6 more days until it's done.
Commander, we've located one of their facilities.
Alright, looks like the aliens have constructed another facility, this one located in the western United States, but at the moment I am not too worried about that, as we have several backup plans in place in case the Avatar project grows too fast.
I suppose since that worked, we might as well keep it up, Commander.
And just like that, our covert operation concludes and we unlock interchangeable upgrades, perhaps one of the most powerful research breakthroughs in the entire game. This means that we will now be able to reuse weapon attachments, so we can be much more flexible with what we send out into combat each mission. With a bit of rearranging beforehand, our soldiers will pretty much always have access to the top tier stuff. Now at this point, the question is what to do next, and I think I have an idea. We have one new addition to the list here, as we have now unlocked the Hunt the Warlock questline, but they are starting on the lowest knowledge tier, so there is no need to prioritize this. Instead, I think the sensible thing to do here would be to once again reduce Avatar project progress, and you can see it here, one of the rewards is an extra will bonus, and we are sending out a soldier who could use that, namely Grenadier Twitchy. Higher will basically means that our soldiers can fight longer without becoming tired, and at the moment her will stat is just a little bit too low. By also adding her level 2 bondmate Shwaminian, we then shave off 1 day of duration from the covert operation, and of course we will also assign the supplies here to make sure nobody gets captured.
We'll get the job done. Don't worry, Commander.
Just in case there is an ambush, the two of them are also fairly well equipped, but let's hope it doesn't come to that, as we now send them out into the field. And with that, we are ready to go once more. Let's continue building that relay. Right then, here we are, you can see it in the lower left corner. Sharpshooter Zanami and Specialist Van Dyke have also formed a level 2 bond now. Time to immediately plug the next pair into the training center, and as you can see, we only have 1 pair left at this point, and that would be Grenadier Nicholas and Skirmisher Praetor Mox. So let's give them their 6 days of getting to know each other better too, and with that I think we are making very good progress here today, but who knows, maybe the next mission is already waiting for us just around the corner. Only one way to find out. Let's continue scanning. And shortly after our Spark Julian has been repaired, we also learned that Dr. Adam Jagielski, one of our scientists, has made a full recovery. As you might recall, the guy was injured in the latest Chosen sabotage. Just a few seconds later, one exosuit is then added to our inventory, and because it says here that this suit can be used to mount heavy weapons on it, it is no surprise that we are reminded of the experimental heavy weapon project, which we could start at any time to unlock some truly unique armaments. However, of the 3 experimental project branches, I think experimental ammo is the one to go with first. You have already seen how devastating blue screen rounds can be in the right circumstances, and this project here can unlock a few other ammo types that might just be as powerful. That is, once again, if we use them on the right soldiers in the right situations.
Sounds good, Commander. I'll let you know as soon as the project is ready for deployment.
Now, which type of ammunition we actually get out of this, that is completely randomized, but I guess in 8 days we'll find out. Until then, let's continue scanning. At this point then, the Resistance Informant Dark event goes live, but this only moves up the counter for the next retaliation mission, and yes, those can occasionally be tricky, but they should not threaten the success of this run.
Signals coming through clear.
Just in time then, the relay goes up in East Africa and our income increases to 158 supplies. Most importantly though, all future monthly supply drops will now be collected instantly, as we have just unlocked the Rapid Collection Continent bonus. This effectively saves us 3 days of scanning every month, and while money has not really been a huge issue in this run, the time saved will definitely come in handy. Even better then that we finished this just ahead of the next supply drop, so in just 1 day we will see it in action for the first time. Before that happens though, let's quickly fly over to the black market. After all, I have read your comments over the last few episodes, and I think there are a few things we should grab here before the inventory refreshes. So let's make this quick. We will grab the superior scope as well as the superior expanded magazine. Especially now that we can switch attachments around more easily, these two should see action regularly. The superior head trigger meanwhile will not be grabbed, as I believe we have enough for what we might need. What we will also grab, however, that is the Chosen Hunter information here for 40 intel. This will effectively save us 8 days on the final covert action to take out the Hunter, and that is pretty much the entire length of a normal covert operation, and I think 40 intel, that is a good price to pay for an extra covert op, especially considering how much intel we currently have. For the rest of the month then, let's fly back to the Skirmisher HQ, where we will then most likely receive the end of the month report.
Priority message coming through, Commander. Putting it on screen now.
Leading the Resistance is a daunting task, Commander. But your efforts so far have left many wondering if we have made the right approach. We will have to do better.
Alright, this month the Council not too happy with us, understandable as the Avatar project is ticking along, but then again we are already doing something about that.
My strength, my focus, all of my efforts have been rewarded. I am reinvigorated.
Okay, the assassin has leveled up once more, now capable of summoning robotic enemies, while her knowledge bar will most likely also be close to or at the maximum. And indeed, there we are, the assassin has reached the knowledge level of Raider. She is now capable of launching an assault on the Avenger, and yes, we could have avoided this rather easily, I think, but I wanted to show it off just for the sake of true completion. The Warlock, meanwhile, only planning a retribution, while the Hunter is close to the maximum as well, but perhaps we'll be able to take him out before that happens. Let's talk dark events then. The Collectors are left over from last time, and in my opinion not as threatening as counterattack would be. Having Advent soldiers automatically go on Overwatch could be a huge pain in the ass, but let's reveal the hidden event too. This one then, Loyalty Among Thieves, not too dangerous I think. As we just saw, the Hunter is close to maximum knowledge anyway, so this won't really benefit them too much. So that means, in my opinion, counterattack would be the dark event to counter, but we'll get to that in due time. Our resistance orders then will remain as they are. The setup has worked nicely for us, and with that we can now for the very first time collect the entirety of our monthly supply drop, 1014 supplies, now instantly added to our funds. That brings our total balance up to 1146, a nice sum, and let's see if we can perhaps increase it even further. The inventory has been refreshed, so let us once again stop by the black market. Now, we're not going to buy or sell anything here, but repeaters, shield bearer corpses and speed piece asses are in demand, and at least the shield bearer bodies might be something we can part with. On the buying side of things then, you can see it, we once again have a few superior grade items available. Let me know if you want me to grab any of them, but keep in mind that at least our need for weapon attachments has been somewhat reduced. We could also get our hands on a captain level sharpshooter here. That might be interesting, but also quite expensive. So again, let me know in the comments what you think we should grab, and let's continue. We are now being informed that the second power coil has successfully been shielded, and that means it's time to finally build the shadow chamber. Once again, building it on the power coil means that the shadow chamber will not consume the 5 units of power it would normally take. As a matter of fact, it is the second most power hungry facility in the game, right behind the Psi Lab.
Shadow chamber construction initiated.
So building it here saves us some power, and at least in my opinion it is not a facility that we desperately need as quickly as we can. Our freed up engineer Clegane Shell meanwhile can begin excavating the last building spot. At the moment this will still take a whopping 90 days, but as you know we have ways to speed that up. Speaking of which, the Skirmisher HQ is actually our next destination now. I think with so many building and excavation projects underway this only makes sense. And there we are, looks to me like our covert operation is done, and the Avatar project is once again losing some of its progress. Right, 2 bars lost, that's just lovely.
I'm glad to see our joint effort paid off like we hoped.
I am actually not sure if it's always 2 bars of progress that are removed. I think it varies between 1 and 2, so getting 2 twice in a row is definitely good luck. Twitchy has also earned some will, and let's take a look at what we have available now that a new month has begun.
We have a chance to deal the Elders a great blow, should you wish us to, Commander.
As you can see, there are once again a few worthwhile covert actions to choose from. We could gain another resistance contact, counter the assassin's plan to assault the Avenger, finish hunting both assassin and hunter, grab another promotion, and even reduce Avatar project progress yet again. And the additional resistance contact might seem tempting, but it is actually no longer needed now that we have another comms facility already underway. Reducing the Avatar project is also not desperately urgent at the moment, and with Starfall still in trade recovery and Mox forming a bond, we also lack the personnel to hunt the Hunter, so let's instead grab that promotion. They are increasingly hard to come by after all. Once again, we are giving this one to one of our highest ranking soldiers, Sharpshooter Sapphire West, and we sent Ranger Warhawk along with her. The two have good chemistry and might be able to form a bond over this. By assigning 25 supplies, the entire operation is then also completely risk-free, so in 9 days we will have our first major rank sharpshooter. And with that, we can keep scanning. We will shortly finish Starfall's trade recovery, as well as Mox's and Nicholas's bond training, but we have no further candidates to plug in at the moment, so instead we are continuing right away with the construction of the Psi Lab.
Psi Lab, now operational.
Yes, we can now finally start training our very own Psi Operatives as a standalone soldier class, so let's get to it right away. Alright, it already says it here, to train Psi Operatives we need fresh rookies. Anyone who already has a class assigned can unfortunately not receive psionic abilities. We can also staff an engineer here to speed up training, and we definitely want to do that, but first we will actually immediately upgrade the facility and unlock a second training slot. That way we can train 2 Psi Operatives simultaneously, and well, training them here is the only way to level them up. They do actually not gain experience in combat, so this is a very important upgrade to unlock as soon as possible. Afterwards, we then recruit 2 rookies, and let's go straight from the top here, starting with Esteban Flores, nickname Red Fighter, and submitted by Patreon supporter Red Fighter 67. Born in the desert in the United States, Esteban hasn't known much of the world around him, as the only people he cared about were his family. However, when Earth was attacked by the aliens, he saw the horrors they brought to this world. He has seen many people lose their life and others abducted. As he survived, he pledged to himself that he'll do whatever he can to push these invaders off his planet. Esteban volunteered into military service. As a way to remember his family, he got a tattoo of a barcode on his left arm that, when scanned, displayed the names of his family as a way to remember what he's fighting for. So, a man scarred by the horrors of war and desperately fighting for the honor of his family. Congratulations and welcome to the team. Our second candidate then, Matt Potato Lewin, submitted by the patron of the same name, has definitely earned his nickname, as his biography reads as follows. At age 18, Matt left his mom, 23 brothers named Dave, and the shoe where he was born. In search of greener pastures, or at least ones with less foot fungus, Matt found himself on a literal pasture, growing potatoes for a living. When the aliens landed, ruining his burgeoning crops, Matt just knew that he had to take up arms, preferably a potato gun, and fight back. So, Matt Lewin, a potato farmer out for revenge. Once again, congratulations on making it into the series and welcome to the team. For 40 supplies each, we will now recruit these 2 and immediately plug them into the Psi Lab to be trained as Psi Operatives. Engineer Dylan Schmidt will oversee the procedures and ensure that training time is cut in half, from 30 to 15 days, a very noticeable time saver and an absolute must in my opinion. The Psi Operative is definitely one of the stronger classes in the game, and I want to show off as much of it as possible, which is why we immediately train 2 people instead of just 1. As we continue to scan then, we have a transmission coming in. It looks like after 20 minutes into the episode, today's mission has finally arrived, and it promises to be an interesting one. We need to extract an engineer by the name of Bryce, last name redacted, and we will also receive 114 intel for our efforts. The mission also takes place in Warlock territory, so we might just face our first encounter with them, and because of that, let's quickly take a look at what we're dealing with. You can see it here, the Warlock already equipped with 4 strengths, among them the very annoying Revenge and Planewalker abilities, so we better not miss any attacks against the Warlock, and even if we hit, they will only teleport elsewhere as soon as we do. On the bright side, the Warlock does take increased damage from Templars and explosions, and both of those are generally very good at hitting where they're supposed to. Still, this could get interesting, so let's prepare accordingly. And before we jump into the mission, we'll actually make a quick purchase at the GTS, where we have already purchased the class-specific Hunter's Instinct for the Ranger, and today we'll follow that up with Deadshot for the Sharpshooter. A flat 10% crit chance increase is definitely noteworthy, although some of the other class skills here are very useful as well, particularly cool under pressure for the Specialist, but let's not spend all of our hard-earned supplies in one go. Instead, with our sharpshooters and perhaps the rest of the team too ready to go, we can launch the mission now, and for this one we will want to take a very particular squad.
Setting course for Brazil.
Now, first things first, we might run into the Warlock, so bringing Templar Logan along is a no-brainer. The mission itself then is a VIP extraction, and you usually do not start off in concealment for those, so a Reaper is pretty much mandatory as well. Grenadier Typhoon and Spark Julian then make sure that we have the necessary explosive firepower, and Julian is also with us because we really need to level up a Spark quickly. Van Dyke and Tsunami then our only pair of bondmates, both equipped with blue-screen rounds, just in case we run into some tech enemies. I have also already made sure that everyone has the best possible weapon attachments for their class. Forgive me if I do not go through each and every one of those at this point, but don't worry, those that have a noticeable impact will be mentioned during the mission shortly. One last thing then before we leave, let's give Grenadier Typhoon the exosuit, just to increase his explosive capabilities even further.
The EXO armor suit gives our soldiers the power they need to handle heavy weapons, with the durability to match.
And yes indeed, with the exosuit he has now received 5 extra points of health as well as 1 point of armor, not to mention a heavy weapon slot that can be used alongside the grenade launcher, although at the moment we only have 1 heavy weapon unlocked and that's the rocket launcher, but still this now means that he can fire 3 grenades thanks to his heavy ordnance skill, as well as a rocket, so that's 4 explosives in total, and I think that should be enough for whatever comes our way. Just like the rest of our squad, he is also already sporting the new plasma grenades, so we will most likely see them in action for the first time here today too.
Sky Ranger deployed.
Menace, ready to deploy.
We're moving in for an emergency extraction of a VIP working for the Resistance. The spokesman provided the coordinates, but the rest is up to us. Locate the VIP and escort them out of the area safely. Goes without saying, but don't leave any hostiles standing. Menace 1-5, target coordinates incoming. Secure the VIP and proceed to the evac volume for extraction. Advent already knows we're here, so your position isn't concealed for the extraction.
Alright, here we go then. As expected, no concealment, except for Reaper Sleeper. Our VIP is also already part of the squad and we only have 12 turns to extract them. The evac zone is a good distance away, but not terribly far. So I think this should be manageable, depending of course on how many enemies we run into.
I'm at your service. The target is marked.
Speaking of which, Reaper Celica immediately detects the first pod, not too far away from our starting location. An Archon and a Sectoid are patrolling over here, so let's carefully inch our squad forward, trying not to draw attention. We can also conveniently use our Spark as high cover for Grenadier Typhoon.
I can handle that.
While Specialist Van Dyke has spotted an Advent watchtower, and can now take a closer look at what's to gain from hacking it.
Infiltriere Ihr System.
Alright, a guaranteed 2-turn increase to aim and crit chance. I think that's just too good to pass up. In hindsight though, it may have been a mistake to grab it this early in the mission. I guess it was in fact a bit too tempting. Either way, with that bonus unlocked, Van Dyke is now the only one not going on Overwatch. The rest of the squad, meanwhile, can wait for the enemies to get closer.
On Overwatch.
Got it covered.
Watching coming.
Scanners are active.
You have been judged.
Before the aliens approach, however, we indeed have him appear. The Warlock is here, with the strengths and weaknesses we already covered earlier, not to mention a bunch of other nasty abilities that we will most likely see soon enough.
And I am your punishment.
And yes, with 50 hit points and 4 points of armor, he is not exactly easy to take down either. So this could definitely get interesting.
That's one of the Elders chosen, and it's not gonna make things easy on us. Let's try to take care of it as quickly as possible.
Over on our side of the battlefield, meanwhile, Sectoid and Archon are on the move, and that means it's time to trigger the Overwatch ambush.
Yeah, I didn't get it.
Missed. Missed. I'll rip your damn head.
Wash over the battlefield.
Right, this was moderately successful, I think. The Sectoid is down to only 3 hit points, the Archon meanwhile still sporting 17. And let's begin with that Archon and laying down holo-targeting on them. And despite a superior scope, Typhoon here only has a 73% hit chance.
Shot failed to connect.
And unfortunately, that is enough to make him miss, but it also means that Van Dyke's shot is now guaranteed to hit. As you can see on the left side, he is receiving a whole plethora of bonuses, among them the hacking reward, which is now definitely paying off. And it is paying off indeed, as he now also gets a critical hit that would have been impossible without the hacking reward from earlier. Since he has now attacked the Archon, he also gives his bondmate Tsunami a 10% aim bonus due to the spotter bonus, and that means her shot is guaranteed to land as well.
How about that?
You should feel proud in having died for the glory of the Elders.
Alright, and thanks to max damage, Tsunami gets the kill, and that leaves only the Sectoid. An easy target for Julian, who has a superior stock equipped.
An efficient kill.
So he will do 3 points of damage, no matter if he hits or misses. And that's a hit, and that means the first pod is taken out. Let's advance a bit with our VIP and hunker down. The rest of the squad meanwhile stays put and once again goes on Overwatch.
I have sight beyond vision.
Now, unfortunately, the Mutant Spectre pod we saw earlier does not come close enough to trigger reaction fire, so instead the turn ends and we move on to the Warlock. Right, so the Warlock is summoning Spectral Zombies, and since we are already well into the mid-game, not just 1 but 3 of them. All 3 of them have only 8 hit points and immediately get 1 action to move, which they will use to get as close to our squad as possible. Now technically, these Spectral Zombies do have a melee attack, but they rarely use it. Instead, one of them will always do what this guy's doing here. They will set things up for the Spectral Rupture. Basically, they will prime themselves to explode.
I am nearly upon you.
In that sense, they are not unlike the derelict mechs we fought during Shen's Last Gift, although with the caveat that there's always only one of them who can set things up for the explosion. Now, if your squad is huddled closely together, chances are the zombies will end up near each other too, and that can actually be exploited, as the Spectral Rupture has a 3-tile radius in each direction. So here's what we're going to do. First things first, let's get everyone a safe distance away. We will then use Logan to deal some damage against the zombie primed for explosion. That brings him down to 4 hit points, enough to get the kill with a grenade. So let's keep evacuating the area, and eventually we will use one of Typhoon's many explosives. The blast radius here big enough to catch all 3 zombies in it, including the one that is primed to detonate anyway. And that means we will shortly see the damage from both the grenade as well as the explosion.
Fire in the hole!
And that should take out at least 2 of them. I'm not actually sure if the third one is in range of the Spectral Rupture.
The Elders created them for this very purpose. In that respect, they are fulfilled.
Alright, there we are. Looking back at it, this might have actually been a waste of a grenade. I think we would have been very much able to kill off all 3 without the use of explosives. Still, this does make the last kill a lot easier. Let's give it to our Reaper, who is guaranteed to hit, and with that, guaranteed to remain hidden. The rest of the squad then goes on overwatch again. Let's see if Muton and Spectre come close enough this time.
Maximum sensitivity.
Those without faith will perish.
Das ist nicht gut.
No place for you to go now.
Right, Van Dyke opens things up but misses, so much for that aim bonus. Let's see how the rest of the squad is doing.
Strange.
Target's still up.
Okay, 3 shots, 3 misses. We only deal a bit of damage thanks to Julian's stock. Thankfully, at least the Chosen stays silent, so we can focus on Muton and Spectre for the moment. And once again, we'll lay down holo-targeting first, this time the hit chance only at 63%. Still, Typhoon does not want to miss and also applies some very important armor shredding. Let's send in our Spark now and see if Julian can get the killing blow.
How many of you have I killed?
Alright, so far so good, that's the Muton down. Let's see what Tsunami can do against the Spectre. If she hits this, blue screen rounds might just be able to take care of the rest.
That was good.
Lovely, what an efficient turn that was. And it means we can spend the rest of it scouting ahead with our Reaper, who grabs the high ground but does not spot anyone. So let's have Logan, our VIP, and Van Dyke follow up, and once again we'll end the turn on Overwatch just in case.
Legen wir endlich los. Na los, zeigt euch!
Menace 1-5, be advised, hostile interceptors are inbound on your current position. Firebrand has a limited window to provide extraction.
Your forces will perish, and you will return to the Elders, Commander.
1/3 of the timer has ticked down, so Bradford is urging us to move. Meanwhile, the Warlock as well as the enemy forces both remain silent. The evac zone then also just across the building here, so unless we meet some incredibly heavy resistance, 8 turns should be plenty.
You'll never hide from me. An alien scouting party.
Scouting out the ground ahead, a Reaper Sleeper then detects Trooper and Stun Lancer. Nothing to worry about, but we should not alert them just yet. Instead, let's bring our squad back together first. At least our 2 faction soldiers then end things on Overwatch, because a very particular cooldown has just ended. You'll see what I mean in just a second. The 2 Advent soldiers meanwhile move away from us, and that means it's once again time for the Warlock's turn. And yes indeed, after a 3-turn cooldown, the Spectral Zombies are back, once again summoned right into the middle of our group, but this time we are at least somewhat prepared for that. As our Reaper unfortunately gets detected here, she also briefly spots an Archon and 2 more sectoids, but thankfully they seem to be out of sight range.
You can never escape my sight.
So here we are then, once again surrounded by Spectral Zombies. We are also aware of at least 5 more enemies on the map, and that's not to mention the Warlock himself. So let's get to it. This time we'll do it the easy way. First, with a melee strike from Logan that conveniently enough also gives him some focus.
X-ray neutralized.
Then Julian can fire a 96%er for kill number 2.
They're as weak as
For
ever.
every fallen child of the Elders, humanity will repay a tally in flesh.
And with the rest of the squad already well out of the way, Typhoon can go for kill number 3. Unfortunately though, he does not quite do enough damage, so let's give this one to Van Dyke instead. After a quick reload of his 6-shot magazine, he can now grab the kill. So, this is what the spectral explosion looks like without the help of a grenade. It only deals 3 to 4 points of damage, so it is definitely something that you can withstand if there is no other option. Now, at this point, with our Reaper back in shadow mode, let's keep scouting, and that reveals 2 more enemies.
The invaders send a patrol.
A priest, and I think that's another trooper. So that's still 7 enemies left, not an easy task, but we do have the chance to grab the high ground against all of them. So let's move up, or at least closer, whoever we can. Sharpshooters in army once again benefits from the spider suit's grappling hook, although unfortunately we cannot advance too far to the front of the building just yet, as that would give away our presence a bit too early.
Come get some. The time for hiding is over.
Right, looks like those 2 enemies were in fact 3, a shield bearer is present too. Meanwhile, Trooper and Lancer move a bit further towards the back. On the Chosen turn then, nothing happening, so the Warlock surprisingly passive on this first encounter, but maybe that changes once we take out a few more of their allies.
When the time comes, Templar, the Elder's power will drain from you, just as your blood spills and your last breath escapes you.
For this turn, however, we will just make sure to get everyone onto the rooftop. As you can see, we still have half of the mission timer remaining, and the evac zone is already almost within reach. Once again then, it's overwatches all around. I was actually tempted to use the Claymore on these 3 down here, but we might still need that should the Warlock decide to show up later, so let's see what our enemies can come up with.
I see everything.
So far, both groups just patrolling around the evac zone, in this case moving back from us. The Warlock also stays silent, and with that it's back to us. With our first move, we move Typhoon onto the roof and open the door here. I had hoped that this would allow him to launch a grenade, but as you can see, he is just short. In that case, let's reposition around the edge of the rooftop window here.
Jetzt komme ich.
I think this should give us a firing angle if the Advent troops move closer.
Physical exertion outpoint.
And they also do come closer, although not in the way I wanted. A bit of a positioning mistake with Julian here activates the pod, and now the fight is on. Now thankfully we did not actually waste too many actions yet, and that includes Typhoon, who is now actually in grenade range after all, and his blast radius here is just large enough to hit all 3 enemies.
Heads down!
So here we go, that's what a grenadier with a volatile mix and plasma grenades can do. 3 enemies, all down to about half health. So let's start clearing them out. Van Dyke has a guaranteed kill against the trooper.
Willst du noch mehr?
The weakness of these minions only furthers the need for my presence here.
And Spark Julian has a 92% against the priest.
Just off target.
Unfortunately though, that does not give us the kill, so let's continue with Templar Logan,
On your order.
who can first unleash his lightning hands on the exposed shield bearer.
Hostile terminated.
That gets him the crits, and with that the kill. Somewhat unexpected, but I'm definitely not complaining. So up next, let's have our Reaper clear out the priest.
Of warriors.
Alright, there we are. 5 turns left, 3 turns on the loot. At this point I probably should have stayed put, but I didn't, and that unfortunately leads to this.
I will always find you.
Yes, with his bonus action, Van Dyke completely unnecessarily activates the Archon into 2 sectoids. Thankfully, all 3 of them are prone to using actions that are not immediately damaging, but still, this could have been avoided so easily. Well, I guess the least we can do is hunker down with Mr. Redacted over here and put our Templar on Overwatch, and then we better brace ourselves for what comes next.
Moving to Overwatch. Enemy is still out.
Missed!
Alright, as expected, the Archon only goes for blazing pinions, so on the next turn not much will be left of the building here, but at least for this one we are safe. The two sectoids meanwhile doing their absolute very best to help us preserve that flawless mission rating. Both of them do not attack any of our soldiers or even go for the mind control, instead they each only raise a zombie.
You cannot run!
And speaking of zombies, yes, the Warlock's cooldown has once again ended, so in addition to all of this we now have 3 Spectral Zombies to deal with too. And to think that all of this could have been avoided if Van Dyke had just stayed put, well, I guess it wouldn't be fun if there wasn't some sort of challenge. Now, despite a very convoluted situation, we actually have one thing working in our favor here, and that would be the Archon's blazing pinions. Those will strike before the Spectral Zombies can move, so with a bit of luck they will do most of the work for us, especially if we consider that fall damage will likely also be added into the mix. That means that our main priority will be to take out the Archon, not to stop the blazing pinions, those will happen either way, but to stop it from attacking afterwards.
That won't do it.
And while it dodges Typhoon's first shot here, that still applies holo targeting, so Tsunami's lightning hands are guaranteed to hit. The man who started all of this, Van Dyke, can then also get out of the blast zone and aim for a 92%er. Let's see if he can make up his mistake from earlier. Alright, max damage, a good step towards redemption, and in just a second he will actually get to fire again, as we send Tsunami out of the danger zone too, and use her last action on teamwork to give Van Dyke an extra one.
Together, we are strong!
So, 92% hit chance a second time, let's see if he can make it count. Only 6 damage this time, but that shouldn't matter, you'll see why in just a moment. But first, let's use Celica's Claymore against the 2 sectoids and the Spectral Zombie. The chance that we'll actually get to engage the Warlock are getting lower and lower with each round, and these 3 here would otherwise be unaffected by the blazing pinions. Now, at this point, it's time for our Spark Julian to shine.
Re-up and reload.
First, we'll have him reload his 6-shot magazine, and then we'll activate Overdrive to give him 1 extra action. We are then using him to take out the Archon. Again, thanks to the superior stock, the kill is guaranteed.
Observe how it's done.
So, Archon down and Julian does have 1 action left. Let's use it on his recently acquired strike module, which, if it hits, will deliver a guaranteed 9 points of damage, enough to take out one of the 2 Psi Zombies.
Do I get a badge or something?
Unfortunately, the sectoids themselves were not in range, so we'll have to be content with killing only one of them. This one, of course, the one that still had a zombie up. In my opinion, it's a good thing to check that beforehand.
Target eliminated.
Your continued defiance of the English will only strengthen my resolve.
So with that, Logan can go into parry mode and that ends our turn. Let's see how the rest of it now unfolds.
We will bring this resistance to a close.
Right, one zombie dies, the other one barely survives. The sectoid, meanwhile, takes the bait, aims at Logan, and gets parried.
Taking fire over here!
Very importantly then, this Spectral Zombie here was not already primed to detonate, so they can now move and might actually target someone with a melee attack. Before they do, however, they once again first reveal our Reaper, so this means Celica can now no longer go into stealth mode.
There is nowhere to hide.
This time then, the zombie gets ready for the Spectral Rupture, effectively buying us one more turn and maintaining the chance at a flawless mission rating.
Menace 1-5, hostile interceptors are on high-speed approach. Your window for extraction is closing.
And Bradford is correct, we only have 3 turns left to evac, and that means our entire squad. No, unfortunately we do not only need to get the VIP out of here. Now, evacuating might be a bit complicated, as the pipe leading up to the evac zone is currently on fire, but then again, burning damage will only be applied at the start of the next turn, so if necessary we could send someone through there if we still evacuate them on the same turn. After our VIP has moved out of the zombie's blast radius then, we take care of the sectoid, and we'll spend the rest of our turn just moving our squad forward. 3 turns should still be plenty to make it into the evac zone.
I think you quickly come to find that I am no mere prey for you to hunt, Reaper.
Our Spark can also grab the loot, and we recover 2 laser sights, and with that we should now have enough, as they are mostly only used on rangers anyway. Afterwards, Julian can then quickly use the power of his stock to kill the zombie.
If only Advent knew my actual body count.
And with that, the only enemies left at this point are Stun Lancer and Trooper over here, and of course the Warlock. So let's spend the rest of our turn moving up and put a few people on Overwatch. Perhaps we can still catch those 2 Advent soldiers by surprise.
Scanning. My turn on watch.
Scanning a beat!
Unfortunately though, it looks like they are not coming any closer. And I have a feeling that we'll be able to say the same about the Warlock. I have actually read up a bit on this, and it seems like the Warlock is indeed very prone to just hanging around the evac zone in mission types like these. And at this point I am actually very much expecting not to officially activate them, and even if we do, we might still decide to evac anyway. Still, the mission is not over yet, we have 2 turns left, and unsurprisingly we will use them to make sure that we can actually get everyone into the evac zone on the next one, ideally without having anyone climb through fire. While we do, Templar Logan then also catches a brief glimpse from above at Stun Lancer and Trooper. This activates them and they now go into cover in the building below, and I think unfortunately we don't really have the luxury here of engaging them. Instead, we have to make sure that everyone is as close to the evac zone as possible before we hit that end turn button one last time. That means, apart from Tsunami and Julian, nobody else will be able to take Overwatch actions, so depending on how aggressively our enemies play this, we might still suffer some damage after all.
Moving to Overwatch.
So I can attack anything that passes by.
Right, it looks to me though as if they are not particularly keen on engaging us either, which is something that I think we can absolutely live with.
Even the weak.
The Warlock's Spectral Zombie cooldown meanwhile has once again run out, and so 3 more enemies now appear, all spawning in next to Logan. But very importantly, no matter what they do here, this also means that we will be able to finish this mission with a flawless mission rating, because unless we make some stupid mistake on this last turn, we will be able to get everyone out of here unharmed.
No place for you to go now.
Menace 1-5, you're out of time. Get to the evac point, now!
So here we are then, final turn, and we are not really left with much of a choice. As much as I would have loved to clear out the map at this point, we just don't have the time for it. So the best we can do is to give Logan one more kill, and we'll use Lightning Hands first just to make sure that he gets it.
Target neutralized.
The loss of these subordinates is as meaningless to me as it is to you.
And at this point then, our options are unfortunately exhausted, so let's dash everyone into the evac zone and prepare for the escape. Interestingly enough, the fire on the pipe leading up to the roof has actually just gone out, so our VIP can use this easy way out after all, while our Spark Julian just uses his jet boots. And with that, it's time to go. Yes, we are leaving a few enemies standing,
VIP secured in position for evac.
but we have also killed plenty, so in my opinion, that's just fine.
VIP is secure.
Status confirmed. Mission accomplished.
Alright, there we are. We have completed the mission and survived our very first encounter with the Warlock. Admittedly, it wasn't much of an encounter to begin with, but on the bright side, now we know exactly what we're dealing with, and we won't see him again for at least 2 more missions. And yes, I think we could have actually frozen the mission timer by revealing the Warlock. That is usually how these things go, but that would have been pretty risky, I think, so let's just agree to finish this fight a draw.
I would like to assure the citizens of Advent that our peacekeepers will stop at nothing to prevent further attacks by criminal elements such as the one that occurred today. The Elders have total faith in our ability to overcome any and all threats to our peace.
We really put a hurt on the aliens this time, Commander. They won't forget it.
And there we are. Despite our best efforts, no promotions for anyone. I had actually hoped to at least get one for Julian. Our Spark definitely racked up a fair number of kills today, not to mention that he's already up to 20 kills in just 3 missions. But unfortunately, it just wasn't meant to be today. Well, at least we recover some loot as well as another engineer. We'll take a closer look at Bryce's biography here in just a second.
You and your crew have dealt another serious blow to the aliens' efforts today, Commander. Impressive work.
The 114 units of intel, by the way, also a lovely reward. That is basically another region contacted for free. The only thing we are still missing is actual contact capacity. And with that, we get to Bryce, last name redacted, nickname Ghost, and the 3rd patron-created character to appear in this video, this one submitted by patron supporter Bryce Martins. Bryce comes from Canada, his date of birth is surprisingly also redacted, and so is his precise birthplace. What we do know is that Bryce joined the Canadian Resistance back in 2012 against the aggressive aliens, and it was here that he got moved up to the equivalent rank of SF. I believe that's Sergeant First Class, but I could be wrong about that. Either way, he received his nickname Ghost. He was the silent but deadly type that could take out a target from either far away or sneak up and slit their throat. After the events of 2015, he mostly went into hiding, but still continued to fight. This is where he was found by another group to fight once more out in the open. And this is where he now joins us as a valuable engineer. So Bryce, once again, congratulations on making it into the series and welcome to the team. To get you started, we will now assign you to excavation duty. And if you are now thinking that you would like to join the series too with a created character of your very own, then I'll leave a link to a video on screen and down below explaining exactly how to do that. At this point, we are rather reliably getting at least 1 or 2 new characters in per video, so just because you did not submit anything to the original character pool back when the series started does not mean that you no longer have a chance of appearing. That just as a short promotional side note, but I think for today we have reached a good point to make the cut. Speaking of side notes, I will actually be on a short extended weekend holiday trip these next few days, so the next video will most likely be the next episode of XCOM next week. I simply will not be home to produce anything else in the meantime. But more stuff is obviously on the way, so stay tuned for that. And if you enjoyed today's video, then I would be very happy if you could leave a thumbs up. If you like what I'm doing and want to support me and my channel further, then you can of course go ahead and subscribe to stay up to date, grab some merch over on shop.petecomplete.com, or check out and maybe even pledge to the Pete Complete Patreon. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you next time. Cheers.